What's good, y'all? It's been a minute since I've posted on this channel. I have been filming. I've been filming a lot, but I haven't been filming regular YouTube videos. I've been working on a Mastering Chess Endgames course, which is really meant to get you into the top 1% of endgame players. That course is set to release in the very near future, along with a 30% off discount code, so keep your eye out for that. But I thought today, to get ourselves back into the groove, we would cover a Hippopotamus Defense game played by Simon Williams against Oscar Williams this year. So we got a little Williams versus Williams matchup. And we see Simon Williams start this thing off with the move of G6 with the modern defense. Now, many of you know that I have an over 6-hour Hippopotamus Defense course. I'll leave the link to that down below. But in that course, I talk about this move of G6. If I'm not mistaken, I think Simon Williams covers the move of B6 in his course. Could be wrong on that. Y'all can let me know. I think that's the move that he talks about. Again, in my course, I talk about the move of G6 going into the modern defense, and I reached the National Master title by playing nothing but the Hippo. I'm now considering going for the FM and IM titles. I'm thinking about it. Okay, and I'm starting to expand my opening repertoire. So I played the Hippopotamus Defense exclusively to the NM title, and now I'm going to start branching off into other systems, still with that hyper-modern approach. I'm still planning on playing the Hippopotamus Defense a bunch in tournament chess, but I got to have some curveballs ready. I do, right? Because with this YouTube channel, a lot of my opponents are figuring out that I play the Hippo, and they're playing very aggressive setups against it. And the reason I played the Hippopotamus Defense in the first place was to surprise my opponents. But now, if I don't play the Hippo, that's a surprise. So I've been looking still at this move of G6, and I've been taking a look at the following moves, which is how I start off the Hippo. Now, previously, I had just been playing E6 and Knight E7 against this English attack type setup. But I've been looking at this move of A6 and B5 recently, which performs very well for black. If you're looking at the master level in terms of professional chess, I mean, black really does perform well here. In fact, last time I looked, black does better here than white does. If black is winning more games than white in tournament chess, when you're looking at master, grandmaster games, it's not a joke. The opening is not a joke much of the time. Of course, it depends on sample size of games and all that kind of stuff. But I've been looking at this move B5, and this is how the game starts off. Right, so B5 here. Bishop B7 is how Simon continues the game. We see G4, Knight D7 is played, castling queenside, and Knight to B6. And if you go into a modern defense type system like this, where you're playing very aggressively, you fianchetto your bishop quickly, you play D6, and then all of a sudden you're going A6, B5, bishop B7, Knight D7, you find that there's a race going on. And often white castles queenside, which is what we see here, and we have the move of Knight to B6 played. And there's different things that white can do. There's different ideas that black has as well. What I would say is that if you're going to go into an opening like this, the PIRC defense, even the Hippo defense, the Owens defense, any of those fianchetto systems as black, where you're not taking control of the center, but you're just, developing, and then you're going to use your flank pawns or B pawn to have counterattacking chances against your opponent, you are going to get crushed in some games. That's okay. I've talked about this again and again on my channel. You're gonna get crushed if you play something like the modern defense. That's just gonna happen sometimes. But what I would say is that when you do get crushed, go back and look at your first mistake of the game. Once you figure that out, never make that mistake again, and eventually you're not going to be making mistakes hardly at all. But here with the move of Knight to B6, white ends up playing H4. And there's a couple of approaches that one could take here. In the game, we see the move of H6. Okay, H6 is played. Now, the engine does like the move of H5 here. And it is important to note we got to do something, right? The engine's going, hey, play H5. If you don't play H5, hey, play H6. We don't want to get into a spot where we see H5 from white and we're unable to lock the position up. Which, I mean, if we play E6 or something right now, H5, we can't lock it up. And white there is looking towards capturing. They're looking towards pushing. They have control. They have leverage. We don't want that. So again, in the game, we see the move of h6. h5 works as well. Very common idea in these aggressive modern defense type lines. Now, if white decides to take, we can capture back with our rook, not our pawn. That's very weakening towards our king side. Instead, we're going to take with our rook, keep all of these pawns intact. And I mean, let's just say we see something like bishop to e2, looking towards our rook. Okay, let's play aggressively. b4. Here we can play a move like a5. If f4, the engine actually likes us just going, you know what? Take my rook. I don't care. I'm going to take on e4. And against bishop takes h5. You can capture the rook off and you have a better game. You could even take the bishop. And these are the types of positions that can arise when you're playing an aggressive modern defense type system with quick expansion on the queen side. I mean, notice here, white only has one bishop and their bishop's terrible. I mean, this bishop can barely even move right now. It can only go to one spot. Let's say this white rook decides to run away to save itself. Okay, we play knight h6. Now, yes, the knight on the rim is dim, but we're coming to h6 with a purpose. We're looking at g4, and we're also looking at f5. Our knight on b6 is looking at d5, c4, and a4. So those knights are ready to pounce. White has an isolated pawn on h4, isolated pawn on f4. The pawn on d4 isn't technically isolated because there is a pawn on the file next to it, but it doesn't feel super secure to me. I mean, white's light squares here are extremely weak. All of these squares highlighted are going to be ours if we're playing this right. And let's just say white plays a move like d5. The reason the modern defense is so dangerous is because you have this fee-encoded bishop that is looking towards the queen side. So hey, they can castle queen side, they can attack us, but we already have an attacking piece, which our opponent often misses. If white ever pushes this pawn, maybe they're thinking, yeah, I'm going to take the knight, whatever. We could play knight to c4. We could also take on b2 and then play knight c4. And, I mean, yeah, the queen's going to be ours. So here with h5, right, if they take, again, don't take with the pawn there. You don't want an isolated pawn on the h-file. Take with the rook and keep your pawn structure intact. Keep an eye on f5 with your pawn. That's very important. And if white decides to push, here, it is important to play the move of e6, which is kind of a hippopotamus defense idea. The hippo, the PIRC, the modern, all these types of systems merge together in terms of their attacking ideas. If we see the move of e5 in this position, there's multiple things that we could do that are good. Knight to e7, good move. Going after weak spots like d5 and f5, beautiful stuff. We could take the pawn. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, white only has one defender. We have two attackers. We could also play the move of d5. And this is, again, coming back to a major hippopotamus defense idea that I've talked about in my course, I've talked about on YouTube. When you get this kind of pawn structure, you are looking to throw your knight into c4. And often, I mean, let's just have white play f4. If we do throw our knight in there at some point and white takes it, we're going to look to take away from the center to activate this bishop. Now, I would be a little bit more patient to throw the knight in there. I think there are ways for us to improve our position in a more controlled way. Like here, I'm looking at the move of knight to e7, looking towards f5, looking towards d5 in the future if that opens up. b4 is something that we could think about here. I personally, though, would probably go with the move of knight to e7, develop a little bit, get some good central coverage, and we're in a good spot. But again, I mean, e5 there for a number of reasons is just really bad for white. A good try for white is d5. And this is something that I think a lot of players going up against a modern defense, hippopotamus defense type system need to think more about, because sure, it doesn't make sense for white in one sense because they're trying to attack on the king side of the board and now all their pawns are facing towards the queen side. But if we as black push this pawn, our bishop's bad. It's just bad, not to mention that this pawn can't ever move without getting captured. So if we push there, we really are locked up. I mean, our bishop here just can't see if it goes to f8. It still can't see this pawn on c7. Cannot push without white taking and getting incredible activity against our then backwards d6 pawn. So this kind of position is not a lot of fun for black. However, against the move of d5, what could black do? Black could play the move of b4. Beautiful idea. Going, you know what? You take my pawn, I'm taking your knight. That's great for us. And if you run with the knight, we're able to capture on d5. Here, play a move like knight to e7. We could have captured, but we could also just play knight to e7. We have 3 attackers on that pawn. We have an incredibly placed dark squared bishop. And white's attack is just fizzled out. The h-pawn can't move. G-pawn can't move. F-pawn can move, but we have f5 pretty well covered at the moment. And as black, I mean, I don't even think we need to be worried. We can castle kingside and start attacking on the queen side with our great activity. Once we take on d5, maybe we'll start pushing that c-pawn down. Who knows? But this is a great situation for us. So that was a tangent there, but that's the idea behind the move of h5. Okay, playing h5, if they take, you're going to capture back with the rook. If they play g5 there, you can play e6, and you're ready for d5 to play the move of b4. But okay, in the game here, we have Simon Williams playing the move of h6. White did not play h5, but if they do, we got to play g5. That's the whole point of playing h6, is so that you can lock this up. If white wants to break this open, go ahead. Black's better now. We can take on g4, play a move like knight f6. I mean, if you're looking at our development here, we have all 4 of our minor pieces developed. White only has 2 of them out. And I mean, let's just say that white goes, you know what, I'm gonna push this pawn, right? Black had pressure on e4, black has pressure on g4. Hey, I'm gonna go crazy here. Okay, we take, and here we could play the move of b4, attacking the knight, which by the way is the lone defender on e4, which both our knight and our light squared bishop attack. So white's got to be very careful in these types of positions to not over push. In the game, we see the move of bishop to d3. That's what we see there. Okay, and that's a quiet developmental move. It's not bad. It's not great either. Okay, now one thing that white could think about here is playing the move of g5. Right, that's a thought. The problem with g5 though is not that we're going to push. I mean, if we push, white has this move of d5 coming up again. And in this case, we don't have our pawn on e6, so we can't just kick the knight and then take on d5 and be in a good spot. I mean, whether this e-pawn or c-pawn pushes, whenever it does, white has the option of taking one of those pawns off and getting great activity along that d-file. I mean, this is not fun. And if we play e6, hoping to then play b4 next move, white just takes. And if they want to, they could take on b6 and even take on d6 here and just start trading down into an endgame where we're going to be down material and where we're going to have weaknesses all over the place. So with g5, what do we do here? Well, it turns out that is a bad move. I mean, that's a bad move because we can just take it. If the pawn captures back, thank you for the rook. If the bishop captures back, we have c5 expanding. And if you take, I mean, we take back again. We're good here. We got pawns side by side, wiping out half of the 4th rank. Our queen is defended. We're in a good spot. We're comfortable here. Some of you might be wondering with the move h6, why doesn't white just play d5 now? Well, they should have. I mean, white should have played d5. I mean, really. b6 is attacked. Knight c4 just doesn't have much support now because it's just one pawn. Again, we can't push e7 or c7 there without those pawns getting captured right off the board. And yeah, this is just not a fun position for black. I understand that our bishop is more active. That's fine. That's cool. But I mean, white could just go with bishop to d4, looking to trade off bishops in that kind of position, and this is not a ton of fun. So here, right, d5, that's a hard move to play against. It is. And I think at some point there, Simon Williams had to go with a different move order to prevent that, right? I mean, again, h5 here is what the engine likes. h5, and then if you see g5, e6, h5 puts pressure on white. That makes white respond in some type of way and makes white think about things. h6 here, white could have played d5 and put us in a bind, but they missed that opportunity. We now see the move of e6. Hey, now if you want to play d5, we're good. We play the move of b4. We instead see king to b1, knight e7. And when I was looking at this game, I was actually looking to study the modern defense. How does Simon Williams play the modern? as I'm looking to expand from my Hippopotamus Defense repertoire into other systems as well. But then I realized, oh my gosh, Simon Williams just put himself into a hippo. This is a Hippopotamus Defense. We're in the hippo now, and this is a very playable position for black. A lot of fun. Now, yes, the typical standard hippo is with our knight on d7 and the pawn on b6, but the main idea that I rely on, once I get into my full hippo against a king on the queen side, is to play b5 and knight b6. And guess what? Simon's already done that. We now see the move of queen to d7, solid move, knight to g3, and now knight c4. I'm not the biggest fan of that move. The engine isn't either. I really like knight c4 if I have this pawn on d5, and I'm giving that pawn support in the following way. That way I can take with my d-pawn and get an active bishop. With knight c4 here, and us taking with the b-pawn, we do get the b-file. That's great, and some players really like that. Obviously, Simon does out of this game, but that's not the best way to play this, in my opinion. I would say, hey, let's play c5 at this point. Play c5, put pressure, see how white responds. We're taking space. We're looking towards capturing on d4. White only has one defender there. Maybe we'll play c4, depending on what they do, and we'll get a lot of space. If they take and they capture again, we have knight a4. In fact, right when they take, we don't even have to take back with our d-pawn. We could play the move of knight a4 immediately and really put pressure on the white side here. Okay, we're putting pressure on b2 twice. If you play c3, hey, we have b4. And, I mean, this is a crazy position, but one in which case Stockfish says we're better. You want to take on d6? Hey, let's take on c3. Attack your queen. Take our knight all you want. The queen falls. And, I mean, if you take on c3 there, we get check. And, I mean, that king is in major trouble. It's amazing just how quickly a modern defense or a Hippopotamus defense can lead to a crushing attack on the queen side quickly. Upcoming video on Magnus Carlsen playing the modern defense soon. All that said, here, instead of the move of c5, in which case the engine gives black the advantage, we see the move of knight to c4. White takes, and we now see knight to e2, rook to b8. Okay, rook b8. Solid move there. The engine doesn't love it, but the principle is there, right? Aiming your rook towards the opponent's king. And here, the engine likes moves like knight c3, king a1, with the idea of rook b1, really proofing that queen side. White's got to be careful about black putting a ton of pressure on that side of the board. Instead of that, though, we see the move of pawn to f4, white really pushing, really making space. I mean, that's a 5-pawn wall. And here, queen b5 from Simon Williams. Strong move, really looking towards that pawn on b2. And white now plays the move of c3. Now, f5 was played in the game, which turns out to be a mistake. The engine likes king to d7, which is pretty crazy. I mean, who's going to play king d7 here? I don't know. What I would say is that at some point, we got to get this rook involved into the attack, and us castling, it's just not that safe. I mean, white has h5, they got a battery ram and a rook, all looking towards h6. We can't lock it up because there is that pawn on f4 that would just take it clean off the board. And if we capture back, white could take with the bishop or just keep on pushing with their h-pawn, and this is terrible. So for those reasons, the king on d7 is actually safer than a king on g8, which is kind of crazy. But we instead see the move of f5, and in general, this is a good idea to think about when white really gets this major expansion. Often f5 is a move to think about because we're putting pressure on both pawns, and this pawn does have support. Here, what white should have done, according to the engine, was d5. And this is just crazy stuff here. By white doing this, they've opened up the d4 square. If we take on e4, white takes on e6. And white is pushing aggressively for a win here. If we take on d5, white has bishop to d4, apparently. And Stockfish likes this for white. But obviously here, we're looking at some super engine-y moves. That's not even a word. Engine-y, but or I don't think it is, but anyways, there you go. G takes f5. If that was played, black's okay if e takes f5, right? We're okay there. Obviously, if white takes, we just go, hey, thanks for the rook, we appreciate that. But if we take with the g pawn, again, white has that d5 idea. So there you'd want to take with the e pawn, and we're good. But white here against f5 in the game, they miss d5. We instead see the move of h5, and now bishop takes e4. Really getting some good activity against that king. We're looking at the rook, so of course the knight captures back. Here we see f takes e4. White ends up taking knight to d5. Good, active move. Just centralizing that knight into a spot where it can't get touched and putting pressure on the white camp. Bishop g1 is played. Interesting move. White really wanted to save their bishop for some reason. I understand that there was a threat here of, us taking the bishop, and then when the queen takes back, having checkmate. This queen right now is overworked. She has a lot on her plate. Okay, she does. But that said, you don't have to run with the bishop. You could play rook h3. You could even play rook h5. That's the engine move. Crazy enough. But we see bishop to g1. Yes, you saved your bishop. Yes, the queen's defending the pawn, but now you have a bishop on g1. That is just honestly terrible. And now we have the move of king to d7 from Simon Williams. King a1 is played. By the way, king d7 there wasn't the engine move. There the engine liked castling kingside. Who's going to do that in a game? I'm not. I'm not castling kingside there. Are you kidding me? So king d7, solid move, very playable game. White ends up playing king to a1. And when it comes to attacking chess, move order matters. We got to think about what move order to take to limit our opponent's options. Now in the game, rook to b7 is played, right? Rook to b7, and it's a solid move. I mean, rook to b7, really looking to form a triple battery ram along the b file. But let's think about this for a second, right? At some point, we would love to play queen a4, right? Is queen a4 or queen a5 better? I think queen a4 is. I really do, because queen a4 puts pressure not just on a2, which a5 does as well, but on b3, c2, and d1. The queen just has better activity. It limits the white queen from stepping, even thinking about stepping to c2. And by leaving the a5 square open, we have rook lift ideas. We could play rook to b5 here. And I mean, let's just say white plays f5 or something. We don't got to play rook a5 and let white take with check and then take with our king, in which case white could play a3. We don't need to do that. How do we win this game in 2 moves? Queen takes a2 with check and rook a5. So really, by putting that queen on a4, white's going to have second thoughts when it comes to putting a rook on b1. And if they do, rook b5, we have a mate in 2 threat. Beautiful stuff, right? Notice there, against rook b1, we're not taking on a2 right now, because then when we play rook b5, yes, we're threatening a mate in 1, but then at that point, white just stops it. So instead, we play queen a4, then rook b5, and now if it's our move, we're taking on a2, and guess what? At that point, you're just going to get checkmated as white. There's no way around that. So I think leaving this square open is a good idea. Against rook b7, though, white takes the opportunity to play queen c2, preventing queen a4 ideas. But okay, I mean, black here still has a great position, a triple battery ram going up against that pawn on b2. Rook b1 is played. Queen a4 just isn't possible, so we see queen a5, g5, and now the move of rook b5. Now, similar to earlier, if white here just goes, oh yeah, thanks for the pawn, this is great. Well, guess what? Black has queen takes a2, rook a5, and rook takes a4. This rook on b1 is doing a great job defending, but it is plugging up that king. So this is an idea now. White in turns plays the move of a3, which is their only option in terms of not having a losing position. And now rook to b3 from Simon Williams. I mean, talk about aggressive chess, talk about taking over weaknesses. And it's in this position that white ended up taking on h6. But I do want to cover this move of king to a2. How do we put more pressure on white in this type of position? c5, beautiful move, taking space. If white takes, the bishop becomes unleashed. All of a sudden, this bishop is in the action. We could take on c3 with the bishop there. Queen a4 is also a good move, but I mean, bishop takes c3, just absolutely blasts open white's queen side. Let's say white takes on h6. What does this do? Well, we're not going to take on d4. I mean, that's just not a great idea. Instead, we're going to play knight b4 with check. We got to go after that king aggressively. By the way, if the king moves, we have multiple options here. I mean, taking the queen, nothing wrong with that. you could even take on a3 with the rook or the queen first and then take their queen, and this game is going to wrap up very quickly. There's a bunch of mate and threes in that position. If white does take with the c-pawn, okay, we don't have a force to mate, but we capture back, and it's like, you know what, if you take our bishop, I mean, we have 1 and 2, and that game is over. We have a mate and 2 threat that is very strong. Your pawn is pinned, you can't take. If you push, game over on the spot. Let's say queen c1. Well, in this case, I mean, yeah, let's take on a3, and white's just not in good shape. I know they're up 2 points in material. Who cares, though? Their king on a2 is cooked. And with rook b3, again, in the game we see g takes h6, and now bishop f6 is played. Now, something to look at is the engine move of rook takes a3. Rook takes a3, really good move for black. Turns out, though, this does fizzle into a draw, right? I mean, white there has to take the rook. They have to play queen a2. Pretty easy to play good defensive chess when your moves are forced. But now white needs to be careful against knight takes c3. Great move there. Putting so much pressure on white. Notice right now we're threatening a mate in 1 on a2. We're threatening a mate in 1 on b1 with our rook. Let's just say you take our rook. Okay, we take your queen. Let's just say you take our queen. Okay, we take your rook. The game's over in either of those cases. Let's say rook b2, trying to, hang on to everything. Okay, we take on a2. You got to take with the rook. The game's over. I mean, there are so many ways for white to fall into trouble here. The only move that doesn't give us a checkmate in 1 or 2 moves is knight takes c3, in which case we take with the queen. Now, white doesn't want to give up their queen. That doesn't make sense. So we see the move of rook to b2. We can't play queen c1 or else white just blocks. We're down in material, and our attack is fizzling out. White here is able to hold a winning position because they're up material, and our attack isn't going to get that material back, and it's not going to checkmate their king. So what do we do instead? There is this move of queen e1 with check. You block with the rook. Okay, we go back. Again, you don't want to give up your queen. You go rook. Okay, we throw in a check. Queen. Okay, check. Queen. Okay, check. And yeah, that's just a 3-4 repetition. So, rook takes a3 is playable there. That is the engine move. Although bishop f6 really does put the pressure on white to play good defensive chess, and there are so many ways for white to fall into trouble. We see the move of g7, right? g7 was played there. Okay, white here just going, you know what? I'm going to keep expanding. I'm going to keep pushing my pawns. And again, Simon here does have that idea of rook takes a3, followed by knight takes c3, in which case the best thing that white has is taking, and then just going, you know what? Fine. We'll go into a draw. Right? However, here in the game, instead of rook takes a3, we see the move of e3. Crazy idea here. I mean, this game gets complicated. Very complicated here. I mean, in the game, knight c1 is played. Okay, let's just say white plays f5. What is the whole point of e3? It's to cut off that bishop from d4, surprisingly enough. Here, black has rook takes a3, queen takes a3, knight takes c3. We already know all the checkmates. We know you can't take our queen. We know you can't take our rook. And if you take on e6 with check, I'm not taking there and letting you promote with check against my king, distracting my rook. No. King e7. If you want to get another check with your knight, fine. I'm not taking with the rook, though, because you would just take my queen off the board. I'm playing king takes e6, making it so that this queen still can't take on a3, or else we'd have checkmate. By the way, c4, can't do it. And if d5, king f7. We are winning this position. Notice that the bishop is unleashed, the rook is active, the queen is active, the knight is active. White's going to lose this game in just a few moves, according to Stockfish. So you can't take on e6. If you take on c3, we can take with our queen. And here, bishop takes d4. e3 cuts off the bishop. That's the whole point there. And look, you want to take on e6? Okay, king e7. We don't want you checking us, right? You, in this position, decide to check us with the knight. Okay, in that case, we can take, because you can't just take our queen off the board. We still have a battery ram going after b2 in a beautiful way. If rook h2, the engine actually has rook b3. I mean, this is complicated stuff, guys. Very tactical type chess. Again, white here could promote into a knight, in which case, fine, we'll take on e6. If they promote into a queen, our opponent does have 2 queens. We only have 1, but we're going to throw in a check either on e1 or c1. Either one. It doesn't matter, actually. They both lead to a mate in 2. You can't block with the rook because it's pinned. And if you block with the queen there, if you block with the queen, rook a3, the game's over. So, yeah, I mean, e3 there, beautiful idea. We are really looking to take on a3 with the rook, with the queen, capture back with the knight, and eventually have bishop takes d4 ideas. Beautiful stuff. But okay, white here ends up playing the move knight to c1. We now have knight takes c3. Knight takes rook is played. We have rook captures back. And here white ends up playing the move of queen takes c3. Now the engine here for white likes queen takes b3, but queen takes c3 is playable. We have rook takes c3 on the board. And white captures back with the pawn. Now, the moment that happens, Simon Williams just wins the game on the spot with queen takes a3. Let's just cover what white would have had to do to get a fighting chance in this kind of position. Well, first things first. I mean, yes, you can promote, but then we just take on a3 with the rook, and then with the queen, that's it. That doesn't do anything good for white. The only move white has is king a2. Going, yeah, I'm not going to promote into a queen. I'm going to hold off on that. And then following bishop takes d4, white, again, not promoting. That's such an easy move to make, right? Oh, make a queen. Why not? Well, rook takes a3. You got to take queen d2. You got to block. We win as black. So again, white cannot promote. White here would have to take. We capture with the queen. Can white promote now? No. We can go to d2 or c2 and then win. So for the third straight time, white could have promoted into a queen, but it would result in forced mate. Rook h2 here. That is the only move that gives white a fighting chance here. Rook h2. Really playing good defensive chess. And at this point, okay, fine. We take on g7. We take back with the queen. There's multiple things that white can do here, including bishop takes e3. I like queen g3 there. And I mean, according to Stockfish, white has a fighting chance to draw this, but I mean, let's face it. Yes, I know you have not just 2 rooks for the queen, but a bishop as well. But white's king safety isn't great. You only got 1 pawn in front of the king. White only has 2 pawns. We, on the other hand, have 5 pawns. So, yeah, I mean, in this kind of position, the queen flying around, white's in major trouble. And in my endgames course, again, coming soon, I talk about, you know, the whole idea, the whole concept of 2 rooks versus a queen, and how the rooks would love a closed position, a calm position where the rooks are unified and the queen just can't do much. There's not many weaknesses. But the queen loves a game that's crazy, chaotic. And that's exactly what we have here. I mean, we have a king on d7. White has a king on a2. These rooks right now are not connected at all. The bishop is hanging, and white only has 2 pawns, and we got pawns all over the place, including passed pawns on c4, d6, and c7. All that said, hope you enjoyed this game. Crazy complications there. It started out with a modern, very aggressive modern against the queenside a6, b5, and then all of a sudden, Simon Williams turns it into a Hippopotamus Defense. Hope you enjoyed, again, this video. Let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you over in the next one. Peace. I wanted to finish this video out by giving a big thanks to Walter, Steve, Rob, that's a lot of Robs, Ray, Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon before, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Peace.